Hi, I'm Michelle from How Much Do Paper Blooms. Today I wanted to just show you a very quick technique which I've learned, which really helps to strengthen any delicate petals. In particular, I really like using this technique on all of my leaves, and that's not only because it gives it extra strength, but it's also because it adds this extra sheen to the leaf as well. So it starts to look a little bit more natural and gives it that waxy finish that you get in nature. So I really love the effect of this, and the fact that it's more durable is obviously a plus as well.
So all that you'll need for this technique is some Mod Podge and a paintbrush. I'll put some links to it below this video. So I'm using the matte finish Mod Podge, but you can use the matte or the glossy, whichever you prefer. If you can't get your hands on some Mod Podge, then you can also use some tacky glue and just water it down. You'll just have to play with the consistency of that depending on which type of glue that you have. So if you're using the Aleene's tacky glue, I'd suggest to try that with about 2 parts glue to 1 part water. And see how that turns out. You want it to be quite runny but not too watery, just enough that you can paint it on easily without it sticking. Be careful not to get it too watery because then your paper might start to warp. If you are using glue rather than Mod Podge, then obviously bits will stick to it as well, so just be careful to make sure everything is nice and clean on your workspace. And then all we're going to do is paint on the Mod Podge to the underside of your leaves first of all. So I'm using an artist brush here, but you could just use an old makeup brush as long as it's clean, or whatever you have at home. Just something that's soft so that you can get into the grain lines of the paper. So you ideally want to brush this on following the grain lines, because otherwise you won't get into all of the gaps. So just work your way around, brushing that on in the same direction as the grain lines. And I suggest doing that on the underside of the leaf first, just because it makes it easier for you to hold it. So work your way around all of the leaves and then turn it over and do the same thing on the top. So follow the grain lines, brushing that in. Make sure you cover the central spine of the leaf, which would be like the vein, and then make sure that there's no gaps. You want a layer that completely covers the leaf, but don't oversaturate it. You might find at this stage when both sides are covered that they do start to get quite soggy. You can just gently push that back into place either with the brush or with your finger, or if you prefer you can just do one side, let it dry and then turn it over and do the other. Try to also cover the edges as you're working. Once you've covered all of the areas, just turn it over and go back to the start and just make sure that there's no lumps or excessive amounts of glue. You can just smooth that out again with the brush just to make sure it dries properly. And then you just need to leave it to dry. So if you're using Mod Podge, that should take about an hour or two. If you're using glue, then I'd recommend leaving that overnight to give it a chance to properly dry out. Once that's dry, you can go back in and just reshape any of the leaves, just smoothing out any wrinkles and reshaping that to be as you want them. They will still be flexible, but they'll be a lot sturdier than before.
I hope that technique helps you to finish off your leaves and your foliage branches and just gives you an extra skill in your paper flower making journey. How much for being here to celebrate life's special moments with me.